So, good morning everybody. It's Sunday morning, time to cook a roast. It's going to take about an hour to cook today. So, what are we going to do first? Well, there's lots of videos online on how to cook roast potatoes and Yorkshire puddings, but I thought I might as well go through it all just to show you my take on the subject. And it's all about timing. So I put the clock here. It's currently 5 to 12. We're going to eat about 1 o'clock. And I apologise, by the way, my wife's put the washing machine on, so we've got the sound of that to contend with, but hopefully it won't disturb us. First thing I'm going to do is put the water on. So I've got a pot of water there, enough to boil the potatoes in. So let's put that on. I'm also going to make up the Yorkshire pudding mix early on, so let's put the bowl on the scales there, and we're going to want about... Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 Yorkshire puddings in a large Yorkshire pudding tray like that. So these are 10 centimeters across. So I'm going to put in 140 grams of plain flour. So to Americans that would be all-purpose flour. There we go, 140. And I'm going to drop in a couple of eggs. Okay, these are medium eggs. Whoop. Let's just break those yolks. And I'm going to add some water. And it's a matter of getting the right consistency. So a good whisk there. Better to start off by putting too little water in than too much. And it's very hard to describe exactly how thick you want the mixture to be. Maybe a little bit more loose than that. Just a drop more water. There we go. So, like that. And I'm going to give that a really good whisk up. Oh, and the other thing I need to do at this point is put... Ooh, made a bit of a mess there. Is put the oven on. So I'm going to put the oven on fan at 180. So carry on giving this a bit of a whisk, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pop this in the freezer just to chill it down. Then when you put it into the really hot oven, it's going to shock it and help it to rise. I haven't got room in the freezer to put that bowl in, so I'm going to put it in a tupper, and there we go. Could have done this earlier, but let's get a spatula in there, get it all down. Oh, I'll tell you what I did forget to put in there. So easy to forget ingredients when you're cooking, isn't it? Is a little bit of salt. So a pinch of salt. There we are, not too late. Let's pop that in there. Mix that in. Voila. Right, I'm going to pop that in the freezer to chill down. Or indeed in the fridge, seeing as there isn't any room in the freezer. There we go. Pop that in there. Cook that. Then it's time to peel some potatoes. Normally I'd use the skins on the potato as much as possible. So if I make sauté potatoes or anything like that, I leave the skins on, but for roast potatoes, peeling them is absolutely essential. And we're going to parboil these potatoes so that they're a little way cooked before we put them into the oven. So we're going to parboil these potatoes for 10 minutes. Right, so the water's boiling vigorously now. Let's pop those potatoes in there and reduce that down to medium. And a little bit of salt in there. So a little pinch of salt, or indeed a generous pinch of salt, and then onions. So what I'm going to do, top and tail the onions. First of all, halve them and then take the outer skin off. And I'm going to do 2 good sized onions. We really like onions, and red onions I think have got a much nicer flavour and are sweeter than brown onions. So once I've got those peeled and in halves, I'm going to divide each half into 3. So it's just a simple matter of 2 chops on each half to make 1/6 segments. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these to steam on top of the potatoes. They've lost their vigorous boil there, so let's just put that up temporarily. This pan, I was actually given this pan. I can't imagine why someone gave this away, because I use this just like every day. It's so useful. You've got the potatoes boiling away there, and what I'm going to do is put the onions in the top to steam for 10 minutes whilst the potatoes are boiling. So let's put that back down to medium, and it should maintain its gentle boil. There we go. So actually 3 minutes past 12 now, so we're going to leave those till just gone 10 past, and they'll be perfect. Now that I've put the oven on, what I'm going to do is put a pan in the oven to heat up, and this is the only time I ever use vegetable oil. I use olive oil completely exclusively for all other cooking, but olive oil doesn't really work for roast potatoes, so I'm putting some vegetable oil in there, and I'm going to pop that in the oven to heat up with the oven. So by the time these potatoes and onions are parboiled, the oil in the pan and the oven is going to be really hot, and it's going to be just perfect for getting those potatoes in. Okay, so it's 10 past 12, just gone, so it's time to get the potatoes out and into the oven. Now, we've got the onions, of course, on top, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the onions into the oven with the potatoes at the same time initially, because whilst I like burnt onions, the thing is they take a little bit less time than the potatoes. So for the first 10 minutes I'm just going to put the onions to one side, and then I'm going to get the potatoes out of the boiling water. And very important, don't waste this water. I'm going to cook the green vegetables in there, and I'm going to use that water after that to make the gravy. So keep the water. I'm just going to take those potatoes into the steamer and then put the lid on and give them a good shake like that. Shaky, shaky, shaky. There we go. Ooh, nice and fluffy. There we are. Look at that. Can you see that? Nice and fluffy. Okay, so now it's time to get the pan out of the preheated oven. Where's my oven gloves? There they are. So pop those in there. I really should be wearing my pinny, but I decided that wasn't very flattering. It It also looked a bit big-headed saying Master Chef on it. It was a Christmas present. What are you going to do? You know. So now it's a matter of getting the oil all over the potatoes. So I'm just tipping the pan to put all the oil at the, whoops, a daisy. Let's get that back in there. To get all the oil over the potatoes. And we don't want enough oil so that they're completely swimming in oil, because if there's too much oil, they won't get crispy. Now then, one thing I like to use on my roast potatoes is this. This is roast potato seasoning. It's actually from Tesco. And it's got a really nice flavour to it. So let's shake some of that on. It's got a lot of rosemary in there. Gives it a lovely roast flavour. And once again, we'll just mix that up a bit. And we'll pop those into the oven, which is, I remind you, at 180 degrees on fan. Once they're on the way, let's get out our pre-prepared special mix, which I made yesterday. And there we go. What I'm going to do is take off the 2 pieces of cheese, put those to one side, because we don't want the cheese to cook. We only want it to melt on top once this is cooked through. I'm not going to put that in just yet. This needs about half an hour, 35 minutes at most. So the potatoes are going to be in the oven for about 45-50 minutes. And as we come towards the end, I'm going to maybe turn the oven up a little bit hotter if they're not brown enough, but they should be okay. So well, let's just leave that pan. I've turned off the heat, and we're going to do the vegetables in that water later. Now today I'm serving Brussels sprouts, which I've prepared there, and I'm also going to do some carrots. So I think I'll crack on with those now. And I've got a little tip for you here. I've always wanted to share this. Now, carrots, storing carrots. Have you ever found that when you buy a bag of carrots, and they come generally speaking in plastic bags, that by the time you've got to the bottom, especially if you don't cook huge quantities of carrots and you're not really getting through them, that they go rotten very quickly? Well, I've discovered the best way to store carrots. And what I do is I take them out of the bag and I store them in between sheets of kitchen roll so that no 2 carrots are touching. That's the thing. As long as they're not touching, they're only touching the kitchen paper, they store really, really well in the crisper in the fridge. So, having got my carrots, I'm going to give those a peel. Now what I'm going to do today is, because I'm making Yorkshires, and Yorkshires need a hotter oven than the roast potatoes. They need about 220 degrees Celsius. So if I put the oven up to 220, the onions and the roast potatoes are going to get too dark, a little bit overcooked. So I'm going to use 2 ovens today. I'm lucky enough to have a main oven and also a combi oven, microwave and convection oven. So I'm going to use the convection oven combi on heat only, of course, and get that up to 220 whilst I continue to do the potatoes at 180. So let's get these carrots prepared. So it's 20 past 12 now. I think it's time to get the onions in with the potatoes. So don't forget your little stand to put your hot dish on. Don't want to be putting that on a plastic breadboard. So where's my oven gloves? There they are, of course, exactly where they belong. The last place I'd ever think to look. So just started to crisp up nicely, getting a little bit of colour there. Give them a bit of a shake up. Get that fat coated on it. Let's put the onions on top. And I love roast onions. There we go. Get some of that oil coated over the onions. And I want the onions and potatoes cooked a little bit before I'm ready to serve, so that I can take them out and let them rest, so they're not the same temperature as the centre of the sun when you come to eat. And it's also now time to put the special mix in. I refer to this creation as specials, so mushroom specials. So put that in, and I put that on a dish just to make it easier to get it in and out of the oven. So that's all that into the oven. The Yorkshire puddings are going to need about half an hour, so it's time to put the second oven on. So we're going to put that on 220 and put that on to heat up, but also we're going to put the dish into the oven. And before I do that, I'm going to put a little bit of cooking oil in the bottom of each of the Yorkshire pudding, what would you call that? Depression? I can't think of a word that describes each individual. There we are, can't think of the word. Not socket, that wouldn't work, was it? What would you think? Okay, so now it's just gone 12:30, so it's time to put the Yorkshires in. So I need the dish. I've just taken this out of the fridge. Like I say, I would have put it in the freezer, but there wasn't room in the freezer. So let's get that dish out. The oven is fully warmed up to 220. So there we are. We've got the, just give those a little whiz round. And let's get this mixture in. You want them nicely full, but not too full. And what I need is a spatula to get that out into the last one. And whilst you find all sorts of quantities for Yorkshire puddings in recipes that you find online, you'll work it out for yourself in the end exactly how much of flour makes the right quantity for you. I could have made just a little bit more, but I think maybe I didn't put as much water in as I normally do. So there we are. I think that's just about right. So let's return those to the oven. And we're going to put that on for 30 minutes. There we go, 30 minutes. And that will take us right up to serving time. Okay, in the meantime, we're just going to let the potatoes and onions cook away. There's nothing to do there. And we're going to take those out about 10 minutes before I serve, just to let them cool down a bit. And we're going to let the special mix rest for a while with the cheese on top for that to be nicely melted. So now when it comes to the gravy, you haven't got meat juices to make up a beautiful gravy. So what I do is I make a red wine gravy, and I use this. This is Bisto powder. And Bisto's gone all modern these days, and you see rows and rows on the shelf of Bisto granules, which you make up immediately with hot water. But this is the traditional gravy powder. And what you do with this normally is take a small amount of the powder. I use 2 teaspoons, and you mix it with water, and then you use boiling water, which you take from the what cooked the potatoes and has now cooked the green vegetables. And instead of adding water, I add red wine. So a little dash of red wine, just enough to dissolve the Bisto powder into the red wine. I can put that on one side now, and I'll make up the gravy after I've boiled the green vegetables. I'll say green vegetables. Today I'm doing carrots, which are very much not green, but anyway, you know what I mean. So let's put that on one side, put the Bisto away. Not being sponsored by Bisto, but by Jove, it makes good gravy. And what I'm going to do what I like to do is when I serve, instead of putting gravy all over the food, which some people don't like, my wife is not a big gravy fan, I love gravy. So what I do is take a couple of ramekin dishes. Yeah, you could use a gravy boat, but I find it's very nice to have a couple of little ramekin dishes on your plate with your food, and then instead of bathing your food in gravy, you can just dip whatever you want, your vegetables or your potatoes, into the gravy as you wish. So let's put those on one side and fill those when we make the gravy. Right, so it's 10 minutes to go. So it's time to get the special mix out. So let's get that out of the oven. Oh, there we go. And you see how that's bubbling there? When it's bubbling like that, you know that that's hot enough. I'm going to take the potatoes out in a sec afterwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the lid off, make sure it's all mixed through. There we are. And the heat in the mixture is going to keep that nice and hot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that inside a tea cosy. That's a very old-fashioned thing, isn't it? There we go. But or you can wrap it in a hand towel, and I'm going to put that in there, and that's going to stay in there for 10 minutes, and when that comes out it's going to be just the perfect temperature. There, you can put your oven mitts on there and that'll keep it nice and hot. But I'm going to get the potatoes out now. Look at that, just right. There we go. Okay, so the vegetable water is up to a good fierce boil now. Let's pop the carrots and the Brussels sprouts in there, and I'm going to give them about 7 minutes, so about 2 minutes past 1. That'll be ready, and take some plates out. I watched a YouTube video about quirks of English people, things that English people that other nationalities don't do. Things like taking ages to say goodbye on the phone. Yeah, bye, bye, yeah, bye, 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 bye. That's what we do. It's just what we do. But someone said warming the plates is a very English thing to do. And to me it just makes sense. I mean, why would you want to put hot food on cold plates? I don't know. But let's put that plate onto the steamer, and in a few seconds that'll be nice and hot. I'll do the other one, and we've got hot plates to put our hot food on. So I'm going to make up the gravy. I've had my vegetables boiling away for a little bit. Remember, this is the water that I cooked the potatoes in, so there's flavour in there and goodness in there. So I'm just going to give up a stir to my Bisto and red wine mix, and don't use too much red wine. That's my tip, because I had a red wine gravy in a pub once and it really was just red wine heated and solidified. Oh. Anyway, so there we are. Give that a stir, make sure the powder's all dissolved, and then, whoops, don't want any carrots in there. Get that a couple of ladles without the carrots into my cup. That should just about do it. Stir that up. Now, I won't instantly go to the thickness it's going to be at. It needs time just to heat through. So I don't want to throw away all my vegetable water, just in case I want to thin the gravy down a little bit. But I think that's about right. I like it quite thick. I don't like it runny. I like it to stick to the food. So there we go. The vegetables are nearly done. How are we doing? 2 minutes past 1. So those vegetables should be pretty much ready now. Let's try a Brussels sprout and a carrot. See how they are. That's about right. Okay, voila. And that's the other advantage of the steamer. It makes it very easy to drain the vegetables. You just tip one into the other. I did it quickly, and I caught a little bit of the vegetable water in the bottom of the pan in case I need it some more for the gravy. So we're coming up to serving time. Okay, so it's time for the Yorkshires to come out. Let's have a look, see what they look like. Okay, not the biggest Yorkshires I've ever made, but they're pretty good. Now 2 of these I'm going to freeze, and 2 I'm going to serve. So next week, if I make the same roast, I don't have to make Yorkshires. They cook very easily from frozen. Just take them out from the freezer and let them defrost, and then a couple of minutes in the oven maximum. What I do then is I take my ladle, I'm just going to give it a nice bash in the middle, like that. Okay, so I'm ready to plate up now. So let's have a couple of plates. There's 1 Yorkshire each. Let's get the mixture out. Okay, and there we have it. Voila. Okay, so I'm going to get a serving spoon, a big serving spoon, and I'm going to take half of that mix, trying to keep the cheese on the top, and spoon it into the Yorkshire pudding. It's a matter of getting the mixture onto the spoon with the cheese on the top and spoon it into the Yorkshire pudding. Now I have experimented with adding a little bit of creme fraiche, making them really runny and juicy, but the trouble with that is it kind of conflicts with the gravy. If you have something that's really oozy and really runny, the gravy doesn't really work with it. So just going to check that gravy, that's just about the right consistency. So I'm going to pour that into the little dishes, so everyone has a, that smells lovely. And then it's just a matter of serving the vegetables. And then the potatoes, which I just put back into the oven, just give them a little bit more crisp. Oh, look at that. Turn the oven off. And like I say, we really love red onions that are burnt, and my word, yes, they're just right. And look at those potatoes. Lots of lovely onions. And there you have it. What I call my mushroom and leek roast specials. Voila. So there we have it. Only took an hour or so. Let's serve.